Hello, good morning, good afternoon, good evening. I'm Robin,
And I am Gil.
and
And
together we are Rockin The Love.
absolutely, we're ready to have a really fine day. It is Wednesday, 23/22.
It is that.
And we're excited to have you here.
We are that.
We're so excited we can't decide who's talking. Now no one's talking. All right. So just a greeting. We're welcome to those of you who are listening live. We'd love for you to chime in as we go through the show. Send us any comments, any questions, anything like that. And those of you who are listening afterwards, feel free to comment as well. We just want to know that you're out there and you're listening.
Make sure to like us on Facebook, like us on YouTube, like us in all those places, Instagram, everywhere you are, like us. That is the moral to the story. And yeah, and we're so excited today. We are so excited because we are rolling out of February and into March. But as we roll, we are kicking this off today as our birthday celebrations because my birthday comes first at the end of this month, and then comes Gil's in March. So we decided what better way than to have fabulous guests and wonderful prizes and things that we're going to do all the way through and offer to you. So you are part of our party. Okay? Welcome.
And by the way, there will be something given away today for sure. So tell your friends, tell your people, because somebody's going to get something fun.
It's true. So, our topic today, because it's the birthday kickoff, is rebirth. Rebirth and what that looks like and what that is and how that makes you feel and all of that good stuff. So, it's an interesting topic, I think, because I've heard both schools of thought
Mhm.
that either we're constantly rebirthing ourselves
Mm-hmm.
or that we have to live through pain and suffering and dark nights of the souls to get to where we are,
To get to the other side.
to get to the other side.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I think maybe, I mean, I don't know. Some of the truth in that is in the literal birth process, it seems like somewhat of a scary process to come out into the world and everything explodes before you. And so I think sometimes even taking for the idea of rebirth sounds like we're going to go into something that's um, somewhat traumatic. And I'm not sure that's true, but I think that's sort of the way it gets described sometimes.
Yeah, I do too. Hey, Diego, good to see you out there too. So good to have you. So, okay. So, what would you say? I feel like we are constantly going through rebirths here in our house and in our lives. I feel like it's a constant starting over and learning. And recently, I think we've been kind of more focused on upping our game
Mm-hmm.
in everything,
Mm-hmm.
right? Which feels like
Rebirth. It's a reset. It's a
reset.
It's a time to restart in a way. But I think the idea with birth is that you're coming into full life, and there's something about that idea of rebirth that we're actually entering into something fully, and that's what I feel like has been happening for us in various arenas. That we have been stepping into that place where we're opening ourselves up to something more than perhaps we had before.
Yeah. And you have that experience this week.
I did. I did. I was invited for a weekend of a weekend interview, if you will, which meant that I answered a lot of questions and spoke to a lot of people. But here's the thing about the whole thing is just getting the invitations forced me to reevaluate a bunch of stuff. Not so much to reevaluate and rethink it, but to reevaluate how I see myself in relation to it. And that's where the upping the game comes, where you realize that, you know what, I need to open up to this and step into it and be it and allow it in my life. And so that's what happened for me, was that I set a real intention to be fully present and to be fully grounded in myself. I even went to our friend, shout out to um, Regina. Thank you. Sorry, Regina. Uh, she does body work, and she told me, now look, you need to ground. You need to ground at the root. You need to feel yourself anchored in your chair, which I'm doing right now, feet on the floor. And then you need to breathe into your heart, and then you need to allow for spirit and the light to flow through you. And I literally saw myself doing that, and what it did was it anchored me in who I was and who I am in every moment, and allowed me to enter into it in a whole new way. And that's kind of where the rebirth thing is.
That's so beautiful. I mean, what if we did that all the time? I mean, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, actually, that little exercise I'm working on adding to my repertoire, if you will, because it really helps me.
So now you have two things.
Yeah, I have two things I can do. One, continue breathing. Oh, three. I got three now. Oh my goodness.
I don't think you added brush your hair to the list.
You know, I did, but it didn't work. I tried. Where's my hair and makeup? Anyway.
Yeah. Okay. So yeah. Well, that's so interesting. So say more about that experience, because I'll say more.
Okay.
My experience of you was that you were really unstoppable. Mm-hmm. Like, I didn't, as a wife, as a partner, usually, I'm there as a cheerleader or on the side, or there's something I need to do. And my job was really sort of to stay out of the way and just let you be you. I mean, I was there and I supported. I knew I was supporting because I was there.
Right.
But I didn't have to do anything.
Interesting you say that, because at some level I felt that same thing, that I didn't need to lean on you in the same way. And not only that, we'll go ahead.
Except for that last piece of the workshop.
Oh, that was, hey.
It would have inspired. Been so much better if I could have just done that one thing.
Oh, well, yeah, that's true. That's true. That she inspired things came to her mind right at the end, and I wasn't paying attention, but that's okay. But there wasn't a sense that there was a sense that I had all I needed where I am. And in holding that space, it allowed me to step into something much, much larger. And that's that sense of being birthed into something new, being brought into a whole new space in my life. And it was exciting and it was challenging at some level, but it was never scary in the sense of, oh, I can't do this. It was, a little nervous on occasion, but it was never scary. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I do know what you mean.
Yeah.
And I think that's because it was so authentic. And so I was thinking, so what really is rebirth? In some ways, it seems like every time we rebirth, we are truly getting closer and closer to the source of who we truly are meant to be, who we are.
We're coming back to ourselves at some level.
Yeah, that's good.
Yeah. I mean, in a sense, when even if you go back to the sort of the idea of birth, you're coming out and you're just who you are, you're all there. And so this rebirth thing is bringing us back to that place where we are all of who we are, and here we are. And that I think is the power of rebirth. It also gives us a new way of looking at things, because we have adopted certain ideas and thoughts and things that aren't necessarily true, which we might talk about next month, perhaps the BS that we have adopted, and now we don't need to hold on to those if we go back.
You have to tell them what you're talking about.
Oh, the BS. Oh,
So
some
next
of you might.
month's theme is, I'll tell you. Next month's theme is boundaries, borders, and BS. So we'll tell you more about that later. But boundaries, borders, and BS. Okay, I'll tell you now. BS isn't what you're thinking. It's belief system, which sometimes can be BS.
There you go.
So there you go. So yeah. So yeah, it was the thing. The thing about it was, I felt like when it happened for you, that it didn't only happen for you because you had the whole family with you.
It's true.
So you had our sister, your godkids, and everybody graduated. Everybody felt that energetic.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, it was really fascinating, I think.
Well, I think it's interesting when one of us, and by the us I mean in any situation, when one of us shows up fully as who we are, it opens the space and allows others to do the same. It allows others to relate to that authenticity and that depth, and to drop some of their own fears about stepping into it in their own lives, I think. And I think that's part of what happened. You know, I set the intention ahead of time, but part of it was in showing up in the container that I was in, there was also a sense of safety to do that, to be that, because of who and how the container had been set where I was. Does that make sense?
It does. It makes so much sense. And I'm having my own revelation.
Okay, I'd like to hear about it. I don't think I've heard about it yet.
No, I'm just thinking, you know, I'm a person who all of my life, a lot of the times I hold myself back because I want to take everybody with me. I don't want to go without my friends. Like, if I'm going to move up, I want everybody to move up. I want everybody to come along. And if I was really just stepping into my own, whatever you just said,
into your own
rebirth,
bigness, largeness,
like,
rebirth, yeah,
I can't help but take people with me.
right. You have to take people with you at some level. And that's this whole thing. I mean, that's why we're talking about this on our show about relationships, because what's going on within us is going to affect every relationship that we have. It's going to affect how we deal with ourselves, how we deal with our money, our integrity, our other people, our partners, whatever, all of it.
Yeah. Well, that is great. So, okay. So that's our skinny on the rebirth. It's just amazing. And yeah, it was a fabulous weekend, and we want to give a shout out to Center for Spiritual Awareness in Sacramento.
Thank you so much.
They were great. Those beautiful roses you see behind me was from their amazing group of practitioners, and it was just lovely. It was, it's just those feelings when you're home, those places you stop along your journey where you're like, I'm home, my people, my tribe. So it was great to meet everyone and see everyone and be with everyone. And when we come back, you are going to get to be with an amazing man.
Mm-hmm.
And we're going to continue this talk of rebirth and his experience, his near-death experience, and just take it to a different level and learn more from the amazing Peter Bedard. So we'll see you back here in a minute on New Thought Radio Network.
Thank you, Center for Spiritual Living Denver, for your continued support. Thank you, Center for Spiritual Living Midtown Atlanta, for your monthly contribution. Thank you, Center for Spiritual Living North Jersey, for your monthly contribution. And please help us welcome Center for Spiritual Living in La Mesa, California. Thank you for your monthly donation. And a special thanks to Hefferland Foundation for your generous technology grant. And Suze Ajay, thank you for your very generous donation. And a big shout out to all our committed donors.
And we're back.
Hi, everybody.
I'm Robin.
And I'm Gil.
And this is Rockin The Love. And we just want to say hi to Bonnie, your grief doula out there, doula for grief. And thank you for your comments. Should you hold yourself back if you can't take others with you? No, you shouldn't. But we all know how long a lesson that can take to learn. That's a lifetime journey, right? But yeah, definitely. And hi, Linda. Thank you so much for joining in. And John and whoever's out there, thank you, thank you, thank you. We did have an amazing weekend. It was super great. Anyway, now get ready as I'm going to introduce someone to you who is an amazing man. He's a ball of energy. And after a near-death experience, he was faced with one of the greatest challenges of all, living a life in severe physical, emotional, and spiritual pain. The former dancer soon discovered that the anger and frustration he felt because of his injuries were not only keeping him in pain, but were waiting to teach him the greatest gifts of his life. He is now a celebrated author, consultant, international speaker, healer, practitioner. He helps thousands of people globally to live into their life of full potential while integrating the lessons of pain into balanced living. So I am so excited to welcome Peter Bernard.
Well, hi there. Woo! I hear the crowd.
Well, if that isn't a description of rebirth, I don't know what is.
Oh, by the way, somebody had a statement. They said just a moment ago. They said, should they hold themselves back for everybody to catch up or something like that?
Right.
Question of that, and absolutely not. Never. No. Be the catalyst for everybody else to follow you, to join you on the way.
Absolutely, absolutely. If only it was that easy, right?
Can be.
Okay.
All right.
So share with us a little bit about your story.
Sure. So I will tell you the story. I have many, many stories. I'm a big storyteller, but the one you're asking about is my near-death experience, I believe. So when I was a kid, I was just before my 18th birthday. And by the way, we're celebrating rebirth, and your birthday's coming up. And you guys are Pisces, is that right? Or are you on the edge of Aquarius? Both Pisces?
Both
yeah.
Pisces.
Well,
Yep.
I'm an Aquarius. I just had my birthday. So woo, boom, it's the month. I like that. So just before I turned 18, I was actually in a show as a performer, dancer. I had the awesome opportunity of being in a vaudeville show when I was a kid. There was an old vaudeville theater in my in my town, and they did Boo Hiss Villains and Red Hot Mamas, all that type of stuff. They did those shows, and I actually got to play a horse's ass. So
Oh, I never got to play one. I just was one.
okay, well, congratulations. Yeah. So, and it was a very exciting experience for me because my grandfather, he wasn't really in the vaudeville circuit, but he played the banjo, and he would play every now and then when they needed somebody to fill in. And that was just kind of a fun thing to be able to do that. For some reason, I always loved that part of my grandfather's story, and to be able to participate and do that was awesome when he was alive. So that was fun. So I was in the show. I was only a kid. I wasn't even allowed to be inside the theater except on the stage because it was a bar. They served alcohol and that type of thing. And it was opening night, and my parents weren't going to let me come home, weren't going to let me go out, come home. They weren't going to let me go on the cast party. So I was very angry because I was a good kid. I was a kid who did what he was told, and I obeyed my parents and that type of stuff. And they weren't going to let me go. And I was almost 18, and I was just so angry. So I was on my bike, and that anger is important. So I was on a Motobicane, which is kind of a European style, English style moped, German style moped. So I was driving home. I lived in the suburbs. It was a little, very quiet streets. It's, close to late at night, midnight-ish. And I'm driving home, and someone comes up behind me, and the road has a big curve to it. And I'm in the curve, and in the curve itself is a parked semi-truck. As I approach that curve, a car shows up right behind me and hits my back tire and launches me into the parked semi-truck. And my bike and I slam into the semi-truck, and the car drives away, and I jump out of my body. The nice thing about that experience for me was I didn't have to experience that pain. So I didn't have to feel what it was like to slam into the back of a parked semi-truck. So I jumped out of my body, and I watched the whole thing happen. It was a very interesting experience. That was kind of my consciousness. This is very interesting. Wow. And I saw my bike bounce out in the street, my body follow it. And as I was there watching this whole thing, I was literally thinking to myself, well, that gotta hurt. That's gotta hurt. Absolutely. And my body was really mangled. My knee was tucked under itself in a very unnatural way. And I remember thinking, what a beautiful night this is.
Wow.
I wasn't involved in the pain of the moment. So it was in October, what we call the end of summer, those beautiful summer nights where, it's cool, but the moon was full, and there's sort of a warm coolness in the air, that combination of fall coming in and summer fading out. And it was just a beautiful night. And I just watched, and nobody was there. No one was around. It was just me and my consciousness observing my bike and my body. And then suddenly I was being thrust down this spiral. And it was my version of the tunnel. Years later, somebody gave me an actual description of the universe and what our galaxy looks like moving through the universe. And I had this feeling of, I've been there before. They were talking about how when I was a kid, they described the universe in sort of this, they tried to do it three-dimensionally, but it was like the sun and the planets are revolving around the sun. Well, it's not exactly that. The sun is shooting through the universe. The sun is like an asteroid. It's like a meteor shooting through space. And as the sun shoots through space, the planets are going like this around the sun, and they're following it. Right? That's actually what's happening on this planet that we're on. And it's this big spiral that's happening. And, not the old idea of the Earth circling the sun. It's trailing the sun. And yeah, it's going like this, but it's going as the sun is moving. And that was the feeling of being in this particular tunnel that I was in, going to the other side. It was a spiral. It was alive. It was movement. It wasn't like I was just driving through a tunnel in my car. There was so much happening at the same time. So I'm shooting through this tunnel, and I end up on the other side of wherever that is. You can call it heaven, whatever you want to call it. I'm on the other side, and there's this amazing feeling of absolute love, bliss. There are not enough words in English to properly describe the feeling. It was absolute joy, eternal love, bliss, happiness, acceptance. I don't know. There's never been a feeling that I could say actually truly comes close to describing this experience of being on the other side.
Wow.
And so I very jokingly and very seriously say to people that death was the best thing that ever happened to me.
Yeah, it sounds like it at some
Right?
level. Yeah.
That it is something to look forward to. And we tend to live so much of our human lives, these physical lives, we tend to live them with the fear of death, right? The fear of the unknown, the fear of what's out there, the fear of what's next, trying to protect ourselves and avoid death at all costs and that type of thing. And, although as my own physical experience, I think that's probably good, smart advice to not want to off yourself too soon or not want to put yourself in too much danger. And yet, what's on the other side is an amazing experience. So to try and live your life with that understanding of that, whatever mistake I make here, it's okay because the other side's incredible. It literally is something to look forward to, right?
So did you make a conscious choice, or did it all just happen?
So going to the other side, there was no consciousness, no choice.
No, I mean more coming back.
Coming back, absolutely. So let me get to that. So I literally feel like I'm walking around this space. Although I sense there's a floor and I sense there's a ceiling and walls, there are none that I consciously can understand. It feels like my conscious brain is saying I'm floating in eternity, but the physical feeling was that I was absolutely safe standing on solid ground. There was never a concern that I was just floating untethered out in nowhere. And yet, from what I could tell in my limited awareness, it was that this place went on forever and ever and ever, but it felt like it was still contained. Don't know how to describe that any more than that. But I'm in this place. I'm super curious. There's no one there. I'm walking around in this pure white energy, but it's not just white. It's kind of like the white that comes from a prism. When the sun shines through the prism, there's that white light, but then there's all the other colors that are there. And so it's not accurate to say it was white, but it was. And then there was also all this reflective, beautiful, full color that was present in the space. So I'm very curious, and I'm thinking to myself, well, where is everybody? I was expecting that when I crossed over, when I died, that there was going to be my great-grandmother, who I have always looked on as being one of my guardian angels, and my dead dog that I love so much. And there's going to be all of this energy, all these people, my ancestors. I was waiting for them. Like there's going to be a crowd just waiting to greet me and give me a hug. And there was nobody there. And I didn't feel bad about it. It was just more like, oh, that's interesting. Like, where is everybody? There's nobody here. And I felt like I was in this place for a long time. There was the experience of time. I could experience it. It felt like this long period, but it didn't feel like time had passed. Again, there's so many contradictions in this. So I'm walking around. I feel like I'm by myself. I don't feel alone. I don't feel abandoned. I'm curious where everybody is. And then finally, I'm kind of walking around looking at things. And suddenly I turn and there's someone there. And this someone, when I see them, it feels like my heart is being ripped out of my chest. It's the experience I remember reading about in like medieval nun manuscripts. that experience of ecstatic love they used to talk about in the medieval time of it was painful. Like it literally felt like my ribs were breaking open. My chest was splitting open. But there was this joy, this heartfelt something that when I saw this person, my heart was in the most blissful, painful way I can imagine being ripped out of my chest. It's all such an interesting contradiction.
My goodness, yes.
I see this person and I feel this tremendous love for this person, this energy, and yet I have no idea who they are. And I'm thinking to myself, again, I'm fully conscious. I'm thinking to myself, why do I feel like I love this person that I've never seen before, that I consciously remember? And to add on top of it, I'm a kid of the 70s, and Star Wars was a big thing. And this person in this space was kind of like Princess Leia and Obi-Wan Kenobi being projected as a hologram.
Mm.
There was this holographic image, this person that appeared solid, but I could see through them. And I could see the most intricate detail. I remember looking at this person and thinking that, and remembering the tweed of their suit and being curious, nobody wears tweed anymore. That's my brain, right? But I could tell that even though there's a hologram and it's a projection, that this person is wearing a suit, and it's like an old style suit. And for some reason, the words popped into my head of Hong Kong 18 something. I never got the exact date. But that this person, their dress was like maybe British Hong Kong. I don't know. And to top it off, this person that I felt I knew so much, that was like, felt like, the love was actually, as best I described, looked like my understanding of Lao Tzu, right? The wise old man. He was Asian. He had the Fu Manchu, the beard that goes down and the long wispy chin hair. And I have no idea. So is God Asian? I don't know. Is God from Hong Kong, China? I don't know. But this is who appeared for me. And this person, I will say, says to me, "You're not supposed to be here." And I'm thinking to myself, well, that explains why nobody else is here. Right?
Wrong area.
Well, they weren't ready. And it also helps me understand that from my perspective in the spiritual world, there is a possibility for accidents. Right? A lot of us in the spiritual world say, well, accidents are impossible. There's no such thing as an accident. Everything was meant to be, or something of that sort. And maybe it is on the grand picture, but they weren't prepared for me on the other side. I showed up and I had an accident, and there I am. And they said to me, "You're not supposed to be here. You have to leave." And then in that experience, all of the anger, remember that anger I talked about being very mad that my parents didn't trust me. They didn't trust me to go out. It was this show that I was in. It was an opportunity where I was a kid and getting paid to do what I loved. And I was not trusted to go celebrate that I would do something, or someone, ultimately really my parents were being concerned for my well-being and wanting to protect me. Right? It wasn't about me, but as a kid, it felt like it was about me. And I was pissed. And that anger started to come back. And whether this is God or whoever this was that's showing up to me, I flipped them off. And I know this is a podcast, but I said, F you. Because I was like, what? I'm here. Right? Screw you. I have to leave. This is the most amazing place I've ever been. And you're telling me I have to leave? And that anger came back. And when that anger came back, I jumped out of that space, literally jumped. There's no corkscrew coming back for me. I jumped out of that space and I was hovering over my body. And I knew I was no longer over there, wherever over there was. I knew I was no longer over there, and I was back in this place of Earth, whatever it is, hologram itself, I don't know. I was back in this place, and I was observing my body. And again, I watched as the emergency medical people showed up, the paramedics. I saw them approach. I saw them park. I saw them open the doors of the back of the ambulance. I saw them take out the gurney. There were two people. I want to say one was Latino and one was African-American. And the African-American guy leaned over me, and He was so close to my face. I was observing all this again, right? I'm assuming he was checking for my vital signs, trying to see if he can feel a breath or hear a breath or something. And suddenly I jumped back into my body. I didn't consciously plan to. I was watching the whole experience. And by the way, as I was watching the experience, I was saying to myself, I don't want to go back there. I don't want to go back in that body. And I was thinking, oh, I guess this is how ghosts are made. Right? Because I'm not in heaven or whatever that place was. I'm not in my body. I don't want to jump back in that body. And so I guess I'm just going to float around and do that. And then suddenly I jumped back into my body and I opened my eyes and I scared the bejesus out of this guy. He was like Tigger. He was like a cat that just all jumped up, bing, like, you know, there was just like that, his whole body just went bing right up in the air. I must have scared the out of him. And I told him my insurance card's in my back pocket. And then I jumped right back out of my body.
Oh my gosh.
I did not want to stay there. I knew that my body was in a lot of pain. I knew in that moment that I couldn't walk. I knew that my vertebrae were cracked. My knee was shattered. I knew these experiences. And I was a theater kid. I was a dancer. I was discovered as a dancer. You know, I had, you know, there's the body type for a football player or a basketball player, right? I had the body type of a dancer. I had turned out hips. I had turned out knees. I had turned out, you know, my feet. I walked like this. You know, I could jump really high. I was very long and lean. And I had that. And I knew that I could never go back to that. And for me, being discovered as a dancer and dancing was the only place as a kid that I felt safe. It was the only place that I felt like I had found home as a teenager. And I knew I had lost that. And I didn't want to go back. So I jumped out of my body again. I watched them put my body on a gurney, put the gurney in the back of the ambulance, close the doors, get in and drive away. I watched that whole thing. And I'm like, very stubborn me, because I'm very stubborn, was like basically crossing my arms and saying, nope, not going there. Then I have no idea what happened. But the next thing I remember is I open my eyes and I'm looking at the white of the ceiling and I'm saying to myself, that's not it. And I'm in the hospital and there's a drop, you know, those ugly drop ceilings that we have that I'm staring at. And my family is there. My mom and my dad are there. So, you know, somebody had to call them. They had to put on some clothes and get in the car and drive. And the hospital was at least 20 minutes away. What happened in all that length of time, I have no idea.
Wow.
I have no idea how long I was out. There was no police record. There was no ambulance report. So I don't know who hit me. I don't know what happened. I don't know how long I was lying in the street. It had to be for a while because at that time, an ambulance to come out was a 15-minute average time. And I don't know who called, right? So somebody had to come out of their house, go onto this busy street, find my body. Cell phones weren't around back then. So they had to then go back in the house, make a phone call, get the ambulance there. And so I'm guessing it had to be at least a half hour that I was quote unquote dead. And when I jumped in my body and my body was showing vitals, I have no idea how long. I'm guessing it could be anywhere between a half hour and an hour by the time I reopened my eyes. And what was going on in that time period, I don't know. But I was very disappointed to be back. I was very angry to be back in physical form. I was not happy about it at all. Some people talk about their experiences where they wanted to come back. And they say things, oh, I came back for my children, or I came back for my partner, or I came back I had more things to do. I was like, no, I was done. And I spent years coming close to death. I spent years where I had many opportunities to check out again. And I knew that I had gotten sick. And, you know, there's about 4 times where I came close to dying afterwards, where I had to be I was on like emergency IVs and hospitalized and stuff like that. And I knew that I could check out and I didn't. And I don't know why. I'm assuming my soul had more to do, but my conscious brain was done.
So how did that one, I wanted to know, how did that anger manifest, particularly early on, like with your parents, and then where did you find that you could harness this and turn it around to where you've come to now?
Yeah. So this experience really was the catalyst. It was the launching for who I am now. Uh, in that experience, I lost my life purpose. You know, I was going to be the next Brezhnev, right? I was going to be whatever, right? I was going to be a performer, a dancer, a singer. I was going to triple threat. You know, I was already working and beginning to work in that industry, and it was taken away from me. So I lost my voice. I didn't know how to communicate with the world anymore. I had discovered my voice in this talent, and it was gone. So I'd lost my life purpose. I lost my passion. I didn't know who I wanted to be anymore. I didn't know what I wanted to do. I just stumbled, and I was in extreme amounts of pain. I had shattered my left leg. I had split my right wrist open. I lost all the nerves in my right hand. I cracked 5 vertebrae. I had undiagnosed brain damage. At that time, I guess they didn't think to check the brain, but I hit a parked semi-truck. So I didn't discover, I knew there was something wrong, but the doctors kind of just dismissed me. So my brain would stop. It would pause sometimes, where I would sort of like a glitch in the system. Like suddenly it would just stop and then it would start again. I would lose words. I would replace words. All kinds of stuff was going on. And I actually didn't even find out that I had brain damage until I did neurofeedback about 20 years later. And in doing the neurofeedback, the person came up to me and said, are you aware of what's going on in your brain? And I'm like, no, tell me. And they're like, you suffered a really severe trauma and your brain has worked through it. It's worked around it and through it. And there's this particular pattern that you can follow energetically when you put the electrodes on the brain and read the brain, the scan, that they can see these types of things. And I'm like, well, that makes sense. Right?
Wow.
So this was the launch, and I had to heal myself. The doctors were amazing at putting my bones back together, right? They just let my back set. They put a cast on my arm. They put a cast on my leg. Eventually, we did a major surgery where they flew in 14 surgeons through the NFL because my injury on my knee was from the rear of the knee, not the front of the knee. And most common knee injuries are from the front, but in the NFL, most common knee injuries are from the back. So the bones leading into my knee joint shattered into little bits. My kneecap was actually in place. So they had to take all these little bone fragments and glue them back together. And it was a cutting edge surgery. They ended up doing some pins to put the bones back together, but there was a lot of glue, and they rebuilt my knee, which was tremendous. At the same time, the doctors told me I'd never be able to walk again, and that if I could, it would be very difficult. I need some assistance, and I'd have to have my knee replaced, if not earlier, but definitely by the time I was 40. And I did one of my famous FUs again to the doctor and said, you have no right to tell me my future. Your diagnosis is welcome. Your prognosis is not. But that suggestion from an authority figure in a moment of my subconscious being wide open, right? Those types of things in trauma moments sink in. And when I turned 40, my knee literally popped and swelled to the size of a basketball. And the first voice I heard in that was that, well, they told you would never be able to walk again, right? That doctor's voice was the first voice I heard when my knee went pop. And that's one of the things that had led me into hypnosis work, because that suggestion by an authority figure bypassed my conscious brain. Even though I did my FU, you don't have the right to predict my future. And I did walk, and I actually went back to dance. It wasn't possible, but I tried. I could do little things here and there. but I was my walking miracle. And that suggestion really brought, I was already in the world of doing the hypnotic work, but it really brought it home how powerful when people tell us things, when we are in trauma experiences and our conscious mind can't deflect those experiences, how we absorb them and our subconscious makes it happen. It became a belief in my subconscious that I would never be able to walk again. And so I had to go and sit down with my body. And I had been doing a lot of work at that time to talk to the body, to work with the body, to work with healing, and to work with the brain in dictating the body's experiences. And I developed a whole process out of my own healing to heal. And I always use the example of every wound has a physical side to it. Every wound has a mental side to it, and every wound has a spiritual side to it. And so the healing must be done on those levels. And in my own ignorance of healing myself and not having a mentor or somebody to show me how to do anything, I was just stumbling from one thing to the other. And the doctors were great about putting the bones back together, but they didn't have a clue what to do about everything else. And they didn't know what to do about the arthritis, and they didn't know what to do about the chronic pain and how my knee would collapse on itself. And they didn't know what to do about the back issues and the nerve issues. And they didn't know what to do about my hand. They had no idea how to deal with all the other stuff. And they certainly didn't know what to do with my broken heart. And they didn't know what to do with my head that's in a panic of what is my career? What am I going to do? How am I going to take care of myself? And so this has become an integral part of my own healing process that I have done with myself, that I've turned into a book, that I've created as a process, that I teach other people, and that I've come to call convergence healing.
Wow. Woo.
I told you I could talk.
Good job, Peter. You talked a lot. No, I'm amazed at the whole story, and also, just to sit and witness you as you are now, and to hear all that, it's quite uplifting, I guess is one word I can say. I think it's about more than that, but
well, it just opens up the topic so much more. It's such an I mean, there's so many components to it, but it's such an illustration of all of the components of rebirth as well. I mean, that go together.
Well, how much of it we don't even, I don't think, like, you weren't consciously aware of along the process, but as you look back, you see how each of these pieces came along, and you find out 20 years later you had brain damage, and you didn't even know you were working on that, and I think what I heard in the story was what's really fascinating to me is you go back to your experience that night, and you are in the most incredible loving space you've ever been in. And then you go through the longest, most incredible experience to move yourself back to, quote, normalcy. Right? I mean, to rebirth yourself, but not only normalcy, but to rebirth yourself into something totally new that allows you to have the same or similar feelings of success and happiness and like you're involved. Because I hear the healing and the hypnosis and that stuff really touches you now. I mean, it's really, you grasp onto that, and it's become your new thing, and sort of replace the whole dance thing, if you will. You found a new voice. That's what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, I had to. I had a desperation out of. Right. I lived from paycheck to paycheck for years, and the doctors kept giving me more. They kept offering more surgeries and more pharmaceuticals, and I didn't want to take them. So I was just struggling. I was just in pain constantly, and that pain taught me my greatest lessons. Like learning how to be present with the pain, not check out the pain, not medicate the pain, right? I could have been an easy candidate for drug addiction, right? But
Yeah.
I was in so much pain constantly 24/7. And not only to have that physical pain that I was in just from the injuries I had, but then I had fibromyalgia and arthritis and asthma and bronchitis and sciatica. And it was like, I call it my cascade of pain, where my white blood cells started to split, or started to attack my red blood cells, and my hemoglobin was splitting. And when hemoglobin splits, it's a compound. Part of the compound becomes toxic. So my organs were actually shutting down. I came close to dying several times after that. And I had to figure out how to love myself and how to heal myself on all of those levels. And in the mid 90s, I think it was, I started to look at what was going on in Western medicine. And they were talking about this drug cocktail type of thing with cancer and with HIV, right? These combination of drugs that seem to be helping. And I thought, well, I don't want the drugs, but I love the idea of a combination. I love the idea of this cocktail, this recipe. And I wonder what I could do in healing myself and what a holistic cocktail would look like, right? What would that look like? And so I started to go, okay, I know I have these wounds. There's a physical side, there's a mental side, and there's a spiritual side. What I was doing is I was mostly addressing the physical side, because that's the part that was screaming out the loudest. But my broken heart and my not knowing who to be, what to do, where to go in my life, the panic in my brain of not feeling safe in the world, right? I needed to also start addressing those and healing those consciously. And so I started to mix therapies. And somebody would tell me things, like somebody would come up to me and say, hey, I went to this blah, blah, blah. And I'd be like, great, give me their number. I tried everything. I lived absolutely, what they say, the skin of your teeth, right? I lived paycheck to paycheck, penny to penny, and spent everything I had basically on getting better. And I started to discover, if I combine this therapy with this therapy, maybe that won't work for everybody else, but for me, that works.
Yeah. So Peter, thank you so much. Go ahead.
You are a treasure chest of information.
Yes.
And clearly we'll have to have you back on for other topics, because there's just so much. There's so much to your story and to what you do and who you are. And yeah, I think it just really shows us that all things are possible, right?
Absolutely. I love our part of our teachings, Robin, right? Our teaching is that we are not the exception, right? We are the example.
Yes.
Right? And if I could do it, so can someone else. I'm a walking miracle, and so are you.
Yes, you are. Yes, we are. So we are going to do our giveaway.
Nice.
My producer's making faces. Were we going to break? Or I didn't want to break because we're going to the end. So we're going to do our giveaway. And so here it is. If the first person to email info@rockinthelove.com
and include their information
will receive a copy of Peter's book.
We can't read it.
We can't read it. You got to say
Convergence Healing.
That's it. Convergence Healing.
Healing pain with energetic love is the full title.
Energetic love. I love that. So it's a gift, Peter. Thank you so much for offering that gift. I think it's wonderful. So send your name, your mailing address, because we'll have to mail it to you, and make sure obviously we have an email address so we can contact you another way. And the first one that does that will get the book, and we will let them know now or later.
No, we'll
Depends on how fast
later.
they send it, whether we'll let them know now or later.
We'll let them know later. I think that's the way it's going to be. So we just want to thank you. And you'll come back, right?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
And we want to thank everybody for tuning in, for listening. We want to remind you that there's lots of great shows on New Thought Media Network. We have Fireside Chat on Friday nights. We have Cosmic Prayer. We have Ministers Talking Shit. We've got all kinds of things. So whatever you're in the mood for. And of course, we have our beautiful, beautiful doula for grief out there with tips on how to move through things like Peter's talking about, from big griefs to little griefs to big griefs. Anyway, so if you like what you've seen, please donate to New Thought Media Network. You can go to their website and there's a button right there, and
push the button.
Push the button. Sorry, we're watching a funny man make funny faces. Anyway, you know what to do, because you all out there are loving Rockin the Love people. So rock the love this week and continue to celebrate our birthday month with us. And there'll be lots more fun and prizes. Next week, we have Savannah Noelle, who is going to talk about boundaries in relationships. And she says that boundaries teach people how to love us, and they create safety and clarity in our relationships. So join us as we step into boundaries. Okay, we love y'all.
Thank you so much again, Peter. We really appreciate you on the show, and let's all go out and birth it up.
Rock the love.
Rock the love.